Okay. That looks good. That you're seeing what I'm seeing. So, I want to show you how to do use Revit to do things similar to what the Rhino tutorials go through. And the Rhino tutorials are really kind of about abstractions, abstract ways of thinking about architecture as form, as space, as representation and depiction. And that's kind of contrary to the way Revit presents itself as a building information modeling system for designing buildings. And most people have the kind of view that Revit is for, just for designing buildings. And, so usually when you look at it, when you open it up, you have to pick an architectural template and you get this view of the software as something like that, with a ribbon across the top with walls, doors, windows, components, roofs, stairs. Those are architectonic objects. These are the parts of a physical building. And so right now, if you've got Revit open, just open up a project file like I just did. I went to File and New. Depends on how your model is set up right now or your situation is, and get a new project out. So people got that up? Some nodding heads, shake, nod your head if you've got a project open. Good. Don't have a project, ask the person next to you for help or wait for the computer to catch up with us. Now, what I want to do is use Revit in a completely different way. So anti-Revit, sort of. And there's a tool in Revit that is extraordinarily powerful that I really like using. And I'm going to go to File and New and go to a new family here. So you follow along with that. So File, New, and pull it out and pick New Family. And there's, I'll go to English Imperial. And I will pick Generic Model Adaptive, this one right here. And Generic Model Adaptive opens a completely different editing environment. Revit has multiple editing environments. Editing is for modifying and creating elements in your model. So there's the project editor for creating a entire building on a site. There's the family editor for creating components of a building. And there's the conceptual mass editor for creating conceptual mass objects in a very free-form way. And the generic model adaptive editor is really the same as the conceptual mass editor. So if you've done conceptual mass editing, it'll be familiar. If you've never done it, it may be strange, truly strange. It's unlike any editor that I've ever used. So, so you see that that generic model adaptive. I'll open that up. And immediately it throws me into a 3D environment. So this is for making 3D objects. We see, multiple planes here, 3 planes, a flat plane, a vertical one, and another vertical one orthogonally. So, so we've got those different planes. I'll zoom in a little bit, and there's not very many commands in it. There's just these 2D drawing commands. But 2D drawing something in 3D always starts with drawing it in 2D. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. So do that. Just draw a simple rectangle. Now, if you've used Revit some, you may know that you can edit the size of things after you draw them very easily. You don't have to do this, but I'm just going to go ahead and make it a 20-foot by 20-foot square. And if I click on it, I can drag it around, clicking and dragging really easily. Get it kind of centered over that origin there. And then I'm going to click it. And, when you hover over it, it should show the entire square. If it doesn't, I can click the tab key and pick just one side of it. But I want to get the entire square. And when I do that, suddenly some more commands appear up here. And the important one is this create form. So I click on that and it turns into a solid. Now it's a very highly editable solid. I can click on the top edge here and I can pick on this blue arrow and I can pull it up. I can click on the side, the edge over here. I may have to tab to get that face. And I can pull it out. So I can edit that rectangle very, very easily, that box very easily. Now, so create a rectangle, try out editing the faces a little bit, moving the faces around. It's a basic kind of skill there. And moving them to keep it always a rectangular box. If I move it this way, it starts to get out of being a box. It skews it. I don't want to do that right now. But if you do it by accident, you can always undo to get back to the box. So I've got my box. Now I'm going to pick a circle. And now it's going to, by default, it's trying to draw it on the top up here. And I don't want to draw it on the top. I want to draw it on this plane. So I'll just click that plane. Now that's my drawing plane. And I can pick here and I can draw a circle like that. And then if I pick that circle, once again, that create form pops alive. And I can click on that and it extrudes it. Well, actually, it gives me an option. Do I want to revolve it, make a sphere, or do I want to extrude it? I just want to extrude it. And I extrude it. I can, once again, just like the box, move the top up and down. Pretty easy. And I can go back and edit the box if I want to. Or edit just this face here. And pull it out to intersect more with the cylinder. So I'm starting to make a form here. Now the next command I want to show you. So people have done that. Does that work? Got that? Simple extrusions. We extruded a rectangle, got a box. We extrude a circle, we get a cylinder. All pretty straightforward. Now, so questions about it? Good. The next one is a little bit complicated. So one of the classic ways in mathematics to make a solid object is to make what's called a surface of revolution. Anybody ever hear of that before? Either from geometry class or CAD systems or something. But you can revolve something, right? So in order to revolve something, you need an axis to revolve it around. And you need a closed figure to revolve. So Revit's a solid modeler, so it has to be a closed figure, and it will revolve it around the axis. So, so I'm going to, first I'm going to use set here, and I'm going to set my drawing plane to be here. And just so I can see that, I can pick show, and I see, yes, indeed, that is the drawing plane. And then I'm just going to draw an axis. So a line, it doesn't have to be vertical. It could be any angle, but I'll draw an axis. It's just a line, but I know it's going to be an axis. And then I'm going to draw a box on one side of that axis like that. And then I can click and control click the box so that I've clicked the line and the box. And once again, I can create form. And it created a torus shape, revolve that box around the axis. So pretty simple operation. There's not an extrude command in Revit, or at least in this modeler. There's not a revolve command. There's not any special command. You just have to know what you're doing. And if you do it in the logical, rational way, then Revit will understand what you're doing and do it for you. So it's a kind of weird interface, but as you get used to it, it becomes incredibly powerful because you're not having to search for an icon, to do a particular operation. You just do it and it happens. So we've got this torus here. If I click on it, I can see that it really is a torus, even though it's embedded in the model there. I can click on it and probably drag it. Yeah, drag it around, position it in a different place. So questions about that? How to make a revolved object? Sure. I'll do it again in a cooler way. Okay. So let's set the top to be my drawing plane. And all I have to do is click on that face and it moves the drawing plane up there. And then I'm going to draw an axis. Well, let me show you that it doesn't matter what order you draw things, but I am going to use a different tool here. I'm going to use the spline through points. The spline through points is an incredibly powerful tool, and get used to it, rely upon it. So I'll pick spline through points and I'll click several points, and you notice that it starts to curve like a spline would as I pick those points. I'm going to press escape when I've done enough of them. So, and I can, rotate that around a little bit and see that it is on that top surface. And then I'm going to pick a line tool here. Well, I don't know. I'm going to use the spline through points tool again. A spline through points with only 2 points is a straight line. So I'm going to create a line here. And now I have a closed figure. And I'm going to create another line out here for my axis. And then I'll pick the axis and I will pick the closed figure. And it found the entire closed figure, even though it's made up of two lines. And I get my create form, and it created a vase shape. So just by creating the closed figure and the axis, and the closed figure cannot intersect the axis. That would be confusing. How do you revolve it around an axis and it starts intersecting itself? The mathematics go crazy. So that closed figure has to be on one side of the axis or another. It can have one edge right on top of the axis. That's okay. It just can't cross the axis. So, try making the surface of revolution there. Now, there's some other interesting shapes. I can use the spline through points and create a path. And then I can set my drawing surface to be on one of the points on the path. And it will automatically find a plane that is perpendicular to the path at that point. So see, if I pick this point over here, I get a different plane. So it's always finding the surface It doesn't really matter which one I pick right now. So I'm going to pick that one. And I've got a plane there. And I could get my circle tool and draw a little circle here. And then pick the path and control click and pick the circle. And maybe it'll make a circle, make a tube. No, it didn't make a tube. I know why it didn't make a tube. Didn't make a tube because this curvature is too sharp, and it's intersecting itself as it turns around that. But I don't care. I can change it and pick this point, move it out to give me a little bit bigger sort of thing here. Pick this point. I'll tab select to get that point, and move it this way. And now it's a kind of softer curve. Maybe it will work now. Yeah. So I made a pipe kind of shape. So that's called a sweep, because we sweep the profile along the path. Now that gets kind of fun. If I click on this thing, well, I can go to wireframe. You know, and see those points on it. Now, now I can also click this tube, and I can go to X-ray. When I go to X-ray, I see the lines and elements that I used to create it, and I can edit them. So I can come back here and say, you know, move this up vertically. So it's no longer a coplanar tube. It's now a tube that moves up in space. So that tube can move freely through space. And if I turn the X-ray off, I should get the tube again. And if I go to an elevation view, and you see that that tube is not only squirming on the XY plane, it's also deflecting up on the Z plane. So it's extremely free form. Okay, questions about that? Anybody managed to make one? Not yet. Should I do it again? Okay. So a few nods out there saying do it again. You know, so I'll start by picking a plane to draw on. And hopefully I'm on that plane now. And then I will draw a spline curve to define a path. I'll make it pretty gentle. And I used the wrong tool. I don't like that tool. I use the normal spline tool, and I don't like that tool. It just doesn't perform as well as the spline through points. You see, it's got control points that are not on the curve itself. And I'll go back to the spline through points tool. And do some random points here. I don't know. That one may have ended up on the top surface because it highlighted that. Yeah, we were up on the top. I don't know where we are. No, you can get lost in space really easily. So that's really a key kind of issue is it finding points in space that you don't want. You need to draw reference planes whenever you need one to control where the points are in space. Okay, so, but I've got that one, and I will create a reference plane on this surface. Don't know if I got it. No, let's create it on this surface. Doesn't matter a whole lot which one I create it on. And then I'll create a little circle here. And I'll change the radius to be smaller, just because I want it smaller. And then I'll pick that path. So now I've got the circle, the profile, and the path. I can create form, and I got an undulating tube. So you got it? Okay, anybody else get it? A couple of people did, so good. Okay, so so we've got some interesting shapes there. Now, this one is actually really interesting, and we've only used it in sort of a basic fundamental way. And I'm going to actually dissolve it. When I dissolve it, I get back to the path line and the profile. And I'm going to go and pick the plane right here. Hopefully I got that plane to draw on. And I'm going to pick just a rectangle here. Yeah, don't know that it did it. Keep switching to that other plane. Okay, so I can draw a rectangle on the plane through that point. How are we doing? Good. And now I can pick the circle, the path, and the rectangle. And I can create a form from that. So it wasn't quite what I expected, but it's okay. So you see, this is called a blended sweep. So it starts with a circle on one end and it ends up with a rectangle on the other end. So so that form is changing from one cross section to another. So so another very kind of free, interesting shape to make. And and as with all of these shapes, I can X-ray them and move the nodes around. And turn the X-ray off, and I've changed that shape. So you can keep on tweaking and playing with the shapes until you get something you like. So questions about that? Got that? Using X-ray to change the points on it. Now, the last thing in this sort of creation of objects part I want to go through is that anything that I draw, everything I've drawn so far has been a solid. anything I can draw can be a void. And a void is, when it hits a solid, it performs a subtraction operation. So I subtract it from the other one. So I could pick this cell and I can change anything I want into a void. So if I pick this cylinder and over here, I simply pick this property, I can change it to a void. Did I change it to a void? Is it working? Yeah. So it sliced away the element there, the part of that box there. So so you could use any of these to start carving away that basic box, manipulating it in different ways. Interesting that even after I subtract it, I can still mess around with the points and the edges. I can actually come here and if I carefully select this, I can even select the cylinder and tab select to get the top edge. Pull that down and click again. And now I've changed how big the cylinder is that is cutting, but it's still cutting the cube. So that gives you a set of commands. Let's make that a void. Be kind of fun. So I made this little hole in the top of it using that swept blend object. Okay, questions about that? Kind of get the concept if you're not able to follow along, just being aware that you've got anything you make in this environment can be a solid or a void. There's actually a join command, but I'm not real confident about it. So I don't think you even really need it. Just having two things next to each other, they're joined. Now, so you've got the subtract command. And, the assignment is to make 4 of these things about 20 feet by 20 feet. And I'd suggest you make them in 4 different files instead of copying them from one to another, all in the same file. You can, save as and take your first one and modify it, and that becomes your second, and save as and become the third and modify it, and so on. But it's easier in Revit to work with each version in a different file. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to show you is how to make a model out of this. And Revit doesn't have an unfold command. You cannot easily unroll it to make a flat surfaces. It's a solid modeler, and so it doesn't really think of things as pieces of paper that can be folded and unrolled and such. It's just a different kind of attitude towards what form making is. So we're going to use a slicing approach to make it easy to build a model. Anybody built a topo surface, like a site model? Y'all do that in first year, you did that, where you cut each layer and then you stack them on top of each other. Okay, you could cut the layers vertically and stack them horizontally, right? It doesn't really matter what the angle is for cutting those layers or striations. So we'll use that method, and we need to put it into the project environment to do that. So I'm going to pick load into project. I happen to have a lot of things open, so I'm going to put it into project 2. And put it here in the middle somewhere. And I can go to a 3D view up here and look at it in 3D and see these pieces floating out here, which I really not very interested in, but I'm not going to bother with them right now. So back in my plan view, and I just want to slice it vertically multiple times. And the way to do that and control it, basically you're going to use a section tool to cut a section through the model. And if I cut 20 sections through the model and planning on cutting them out of 1/8 inch thick plywood on the laser cutter, then I can take all those pieces together and glue them together and have a model, 20-foot model done at 1/8 inch scale, right? Follow that? So 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. So having 20 slices, glue them together, I've got a 20-foot represented, we're representing a 20-foot building with a 2.5 inch model. Is that right? Okay, so the way I can do that pretty easily is I can get a grid tool here and I can draw a line across here. And then I can array that line. Use the array command here. And I will copy it 20 times. And we'll move to the second .1 foot. And I got those 20 going across there. Now, I don't really like that part of the model, so well, I could use that part of the model. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I like this curve down here. So I'm just going to move this array down here to there we go. Cut something a little bit more interesting. Okay, so I've created these or I can move the model. Let's move the model down to here. I don't know. I could rotate the model. That would be fun. Doesn't really matter. All right, now I'm going to draw a view. So I'll get a section tool here and I'll draw a section like that. And, so if I click on that section, we can see it's clipping planes. It has a clipping plane back here and it's a cut plane here. It's that wide. We can go and look at it. And that's what it looks like. It's not really what I want. So I'm just to see it better. I could, well, what I typically do is I pick all of the objects and I turn them all off because I usually just want a few. And in this case, what I want is the generic models up here. So I'll turn them on. There we go. So I see my generic models. That's the only thing I've drawn, so it didn't matter that much, but just as kind of keeping a clean model, I like to do that. And I'm going to go here to the cut plane and tell it make it black. And solid fill black. Let's see what we see. And so that's the portion that would be cut out for this layer, right? Understand that? Now, now I don't really like seeing this stuff back here, so I can turn some of it off at least by moving this clipping plane in really close down here. And clip without line is good. And now if I go to this section here, you know, I've got a little bit of a stray line up here, but pretty much I have just what I need to cut out, right? All right, and if I go here, I can click on my section. I hold the control key down and drag out another section. And I think I can align it. Yeah. And so, so we look at section 2 here. And it's almost the same as section 1, as we would expect, but it's a little bit different. And so we can keep going here and keep pulling elements out or copying the section across. And copy it. I'll hold the control key down and copy it across. And I have to align it. This is kind of clumsy. I wish they made it easier, but. And now I have a third section. So, you know, so you see that we could quickly make a whole bunch of sections and lay them out on a sheet in Revit. And Revit can save a DWG file. So you're pretty much done at that point. You know, I think somewhere I went and made a Revit template for the laser cutter, but you know, I'll go find it. But you can make your own. It's easy enough. And then you can go straight from Revit to the laser cutter. You know, you'll lay out a sheet that's the same size as the bed of the laser cutter. You will, you know, define your colors according to the convention for the laser cutter, and you just send it to the laser cutter. Now, there's a couple of things to think about when you do this. And I want you to try doing this, hopefully by Friday, but maybe not. If one person gets it done by Friday, I am overjoyed because that person can show everybody else, right? The things that you have to worry about are, one, that these 3 sections look very similar to each other. So it's very easy to confuse them. So So what you're going to want to do is label them. And that's a little bit clumsy in Revit. You know, I'm going to use a text tool, and this one is the third one. So I'll click here and I'll put 3. And you know, and so I could go and label each of these drawings with the element. Now, you know, before I print it, I would probably turn off that black because I don't really need that for the laser cutter. But you know, so I would want to label each of them and set that as a burn for the laser cutter to burn that number on it. So now they're all numbered and it's very easy to put them together. Now, the second issue is what's called registration, getting them all to line up perfectly. Now, the easiest way to make them, I mean, there are various ways to register them. You know, to me, the easiest way to do it would be to design my 3D object to have a slot on the bottom, a void on the bottom of a rectangular shape, and then cut a piece of wood and it slides into it like a rail and holds all the pieces in exactly the right place, right? Kind of understand that concept? That to me, you know, is the laziest way to do it, which I like. I use computers because I'm lazy. Computers do things really fast. It would take me forever to do by hand. So, you know, so as a registration approach, that makes the most sense to me. Now another model building approach that I think is pretty cool is won't work very well for this model, but sometimes you could take a board and cut a slot, cut 20 slots in it, and then slip the profiles into each slot, and it holds them in the right location. Okay, but I don't know, I'm probably getting confusing there. So questions about that? You know, so we've gone through making a weird shape. I've demonstrated how you would convert that into slices that you could cut on the laser cutter. And I want you to make 4 of them. You know, I want them to be, we said at 1/8 inch scale, a 20-foot object is only 2.5 inches. So these are small little things. They're not going to be very expensive. You know, you can probably take 1 sheet and make all 4 of them. So 1 sheet of plywood, 1/8 inch plywood that they sell in the wood shop, and make, you know, and make all of them. And I think it'd be so cool to have 15 times 4, 60 of them, you know, to decorate our studio. Maybe we can hang them from above or something, you know. And, you know, now I think 4 is the right number. The first one you make is going to be really hard. Second one you make, yeah, it's not too hard. Third one you make is going to fly. It's going to be easy. Fourth one you make, probably make it in 15 minutes, you know, maybe an hour, you know. Depends on how much you fuss with the 3D object, right? You know, so that's what I want to do. I'd love to see him Friday. I don't see him Friday. That's okay. You know what would be really fun though? We have a field trip next week. And each of you could bring one in your pocket and then show them to the architects on Friday, you know, or give them to them, even better. Give them one as a memento, a thank you for hosting us. That would be cool. So I don't know. You think so? That'd be a good thing to do. And then you can engrave your name on it too, right? Your name and your email address. So it's like your business card, you know, and they'll keep it on their desk, right? As a paperweight. Perfect. Perfect. We've just invented a product. Okay. So, questions about that? We can go back to the studio and you can put away Rhino for a while and try doing this. And I'll, you know, I don't know. I think that went real well, 40 minutes or less. And we went through how to make crazy shapes in Revit. And maybe another 40 minutes, all of you will understand and be comfortable with it. Yeah, may take a little longer. Okay, thanks.